How do you recommend programming isometrics for powerlifting? The first question I have with any of these things is a lot of these questions are hard to answer because I don't know what type of programming it is. So my answer has to become very super general with this. So the second part is why. You know, why do you think you need isometrics for your program? If you have a solid answer for that, and it's more so than I think they're cool or I've never done them before and I want to see how they work, then I think you can move forward with trying to add them in there. The way that I add them in, and most of the people that I advise or consult with are working using a conjugate-based system. It doesn't really matter for me if it's on max effort day or if it's on speed day. What I do when I program them is I make them, it's based upon wherever the sticking point is or wherever I think the sticking point is. So just because somebody misses their bench press, say 3 inches off their chest, that doesn't mean that they're weak 3 inches off their chest in every case. That can mean that they're not bringing the barbell down fast enough on the eccentric phase. That can mean that they don't have the ability to strain for a long enough period of time between the eccentric and concentric, and they're failing at whatever that time period is that their body's able to strain for before it gives up. It can mean that they're slow off of their chest, so they're not able to get through that one spot. So when it comes to where you're going to decide the actual point of where you're going to work the isometrics, I take a lot of that into account, but I don't overanalyze it to the point of being anal about it, because I'm going to try to cover the whole lift, because there's a 10 or 15 degree variance based upon whatever position you're working the isometrics at. So if you're working it at midpoint, you know, you're going to have 10 degrees up, 10 degrees down, potentially 15. It depends on who you listen to, what research you read. So I've always kind of gone with 10. So that's 30% of the lift right there that's being covered with one position. So if you're working 2 or 3 different positions, you're covering pretty much the whole lift. So I'll generally use 2 different positions or 3, usually never 1, and I'll cycle it for 3 weeks. So week 1, and sometimes I'll work it down, sometimes I'll work it up. I don't really know if it even fucking matters. I haven't seen any difference either way. I'll start at the one position and have them push into it for a 5-second hold. If it's the bench and it's a bottom position, I'll have no weight on the bar. And we have an iso rack, which has an isometric section built into the front of the rack, which makes a lot of this easier than what a lot of you guys are going to be able to do, because we can get very specific with the pin spacings and as far as having J hooks at the top and the bottom and so forth. So I'll start there with no weight. When I get to that second position, I'll have a little loading, so they will unrack, take it out, lower, and then push in to the second position for a 5-second hold. The weight's not heavy, maybe 20, 30%, somewhere in that range. It's so light, I don't even factor it as a percent. It's under 50%. All I want to do is to be able to create more neural drive. And by that, I mean mentally, I want them to push harder. And what I've found is with a little bit of weight on the bar, they push harder. They mentally push. You can see that they push harder. You can see more tension in the pins. You can see more tension in the bar. You can see more tension in their muscles. The reason I don't do it from the lowest position is for the bench press is that's the most dangerous, the vulnerable position. So I want to kind of keep that as unloaded as I possibly can. And even when they push into it, I want a gradual increase over the 5 seconds. Now in the mid position and the higher position, maximal, boom, hit the pin and fucking try to take the rack off the floor as hard as they possibly can. So I don't really fuck with the time. I'll keep it at 5 seconds. That way I have controlled variables to be able to see if this is actually working or not. I don't want to do 5 seconds one week, 7 seconds the next week, 10 seconds or whatever, because now that's another variable which is outside of my control to be able to see. If I do it for a 3-week phase and with the 5 seconds and there's no change, I can't see the change in the max effort work or the dynamic work or accessories or whatnot, then it's either worthless for them to do, or I have to change the programming variables, maybe 2 reps or maybe increasing the time. So that's personally how I go about it. I'll use it for the pulls or for the deadlifts. I'll use it for the bench. I typically will never use it for the squat. It's just too hard to be able to have somebody maintain the right squat position while trying to do that.
Biggie.